A very good morning to everyone joining on this beautiful Monday. It's been a long time, actually. I've checked, so it's 1.5 months. Last stream was beginning of December. Let me apologize for that up front, but you know how it is, holiday season, year of the new year and everything, year closing, so lots of things to do, but I'm back. So what you're seeing right here is the Sentinel, but this is not what this stream will be about. I'll just use this to show you something. So I've been working on a few projects, and two of them had AppSource monetization used. So two AppSource apps with the monetization through AppSource itself. So I had to use entitlement objects. And there were a few hurdles along the way, and I've learned a few things, and I would like to share this with you and explain a few things because, yeah, documentation is not as great about this as it could be, in my opinion. So let's get started. When you look for entitlements, you probably come across this documentation first, which explains the entitlement object, and there is also a little bit about transactability on AppSource apps. So there is another documentation around this, so you can read through this. And actually those screenshots are not too bad, and let's go through this ourselves. So I've opened up the offer setup I have here for the Sentinel, and if you would like to charge your customers through AppSource, you will need to go to the offer setup first and switch this one over. Yes, I would like to sell through Microsoft and have Microsoft host transactions on my behalf. If you change this, you will see another section here pop up, which is the plan overview. And then you can create the plans, basically how to charge your customers. So let's do that now. You need to give some kind of plan ID here. Wait a second. Yeah, that's better. Now, let's just do some test plan ID and a plan name. Test plan name. And that should just take a few seconds. Then you can give some description, basically, which describes what the user can buy when they choose this plan. Let's save this. And then you obviously can define pricing, availability, stuff like this. You can choose which markets this plan will be available in. You can do prices. I think with the import and export thing, you can also do regional pricing, like different currencies and stuff. And then you can choose if you want to give a free trial. That means the user will have to buy the license from the very beginning to be able to use the application, your extension, but they won't pay for the first month. And then also plan visibility. You can choose to create a private plan. I'll come back to this in a moment here. Where you basically just can grant access to certain tenant IDs individually for the customers that will have access to this specific plan. So that's pretty handy. Now, this is what we need to do on this. Oh yeah, we need to be available in at least one market. So let's just choose one. Save draft. Some of the prices are not configured for some. Yeah, and you can actually do free. You just need to type in free and then it works. All right. Now let's go back to the plan overview. The important thing is this service ID. So this is how we can reference the plan when we now switch to. our entitlements. So I've created a folder already. Let's create an entitlement. This is how the snippet looks like. That would be the test entitlement, and we need to do the mandatory affix, which is never can remember. And then we need to put this into the... Did I really mistype this? Apparently. So we need to copy in the ID here. And then let's get rid of this stuff first. The type for this will be, and there are a few types, we will have a per user offer plan. So this is how this will work. And let's just have a look at the other ones. I'm not even sure what this is. Can we have a look at the entitlement associated with Microsoft Entra Service Plan? I'm not sure what that means actually. We will go over role, I think. And a few others in a moment, but let's now stick with the per user offer plan, which is basically what you want if you want to reference plans from the marketplace listing. And then what you also need to do is you'll need to say which objects are covered by this entitlement, and you basically just reference a permission set. This is how you do that. Now, when what that means is every user with the license behind this plan will get access to the objects referenced in that permission set. And that's all it is. Now, remember, when I've already published the Sentinel, we can move freely now. We can use everything. Now, let's see what happens if I publish this. It'll just take about a minute. Oh, there we go already. Right away we cannot even execute the page Sentinel alerts because our license doesn't grant us permissions. That means as soon as your extension defines entitlements, it uses licensing, so to speak. So if you do not have entitlements defined in your extension, everything's just implicit, granted to everyone. As soon as we define at least one entitlement, like the licensing kicks in, and I've done this a little bit on purpose to show you. This permission set just defines one, like read full access to table data alert, and I just have two tables, three tables. This is the main table we looked at before, but as you can see is now what's missing is page execute. Let's add this. So we want to do page Sentinel alerts. Sentinel. Oh, this is the one. Execute. Let's publish again. Oh, it probably doesn't even change anything because this is defined by assigned to the AppSource plan, which I obviously don't have because I don't have the license bought. So still page execute doesn't work. Let's do another entitlement then. Entitlement 2. Don't call your entitlements that way. I just want to be a little bit quicker here. Let's see what we have as types. We can do unlicensed. And I saw that implicit is something everyone has this entitlement. Let's just first try unlicensed. like this, because I don't have a license assigned in my sandbox. At least, like I will have probably a Microsoft license, but no extension license. Yeah, there we go. Different one. Now I have table alert execute is missing. And that way I can probably go through all of those here. We have table. Oh, there. It's missing. Table alert. This one. Execute. And by the way, if you don't know what table execute means, because we have table data, which is basically access to the data behind it, execute on a table is necessary if you want to run functions, like any code defined on the table itself. For that purpose, you will need to have execute permissions on the table. Let's add this, and it'll probably be the last one before I define the entire permission set here, but just to give you an idea what happens, how the permissions work together with entitlements. And now we can open up the table. We have table execute permissions, we have the page view permissions, and we have the data access. Now, if I want to, oh, I don't even have the action. Interesting. So there is an action defined on that page to view additional, to view the rule sets, but it's running that page directly, which makes it, which enables the runtime to determine whether to show the action or not based on the permissions I have on the object referenced, which hides it for me or in front of me, from me, I don't know. But I don't see the action because I don't have permissions to access to run that page. Okay, so that's something I wanted to show to you, that you really need to think about which objects to cover for the entitlements, to assign those, because yeah, it works a little bit different than the usual permission set handling. Now let's try implicit as well, because I wanted to see if that makes a difference or if it just behaves the same way than like unlicensed. Seems to be the same, so I'm not sure what the difference is. Actually, let's have a look. So we have documentation for scenarios where the user isn't licensed through entitlements, mapping AppSource offer plans, unlicensed type will be used. Custom pricing for existing customers, not sure about that. Because unlicensed, just if you don't have any license, so you can just install the extension into your environment and then you're not licensed and then those kick in, so not sure. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about the implicit one. I would probably go with unlicensed instead of implicit for those scenarios. And what you can do with it is, like it was mentioned in the documentation in here, testing entitlements in code, BC unlicensed free license permission. So you could use the unlicensed part to either say, well, if a user doesn't have a license, they can at least look at the setup, for example, or like get their information out of the extension, but cannot really use it anymore. Or you can do like it's described here, a free license where you can say basic usage or basic scenario or the most simple scenario is covered without a license, but anything beyond that needs a plan bought. But you can still define, as I showed earlier, you can define a zero, a free plan basically in here as well, which I will probably prefer to say, well, you need to at least purchase the free plan to access the free functionalities. But I think that comes down to preference at the end. So this is the entitlements that we need to use here. And if we want to give full access, I have, I think, an admin, Sentinel admin permission set. So if I now publish this one behind the entitlement, yeah, wrong window. Now I can see related rule sets, because now my license grants me access to that table as well, and to the surrounding objects. All right, so that's that basically. Let's have another look at the documentation. Here it was. I need a few more, or I should define a few more entitlement objects. First of all, those three. Let's copy that code over. And what this basically is, it has way too many line breaks. I would like to get this on one page somehow. Right. So it's red because it doesn't say, doesn't include my thing here, the FX. And the entitlement is obviously, the permission set's obviously not there. Let's see. Okay, now it compiles. Those are predefined entitlements somehow. And those are for, as it says, delegated admin agent, delegated helpdesk agent, and admin partner, which are all delegated accesses by definition. And those IDs are fixed, I think. So you can just copy them in like this. And the idea is that if you want to define, if you want to give access, like administrative access to delegated admins, so they can at least look at the setup, maybe not execute functions, but at least do some management functions and assist the customer, then you can define those, you should define those, so they don't need a license assigned to access those objects. I usually give full access because they're usually not doing anything. Like you can't really exploit this to get around a license for using the extension. So yeah, that makes sure that those delegated access users have access to your extension as well. And then yeah, the unlicensed one's pretty important. If you want to give at least setup access. And then let's see, what else do we have? Oh yeah. If you want to, and this was a scenario I had when I installed the extension first time into my own tenant. The issue was that I couldn't access my extension anymore because I didn't have a license. Now you cannot really buy your own license for money, because that could be seen as money laundering, because you're paying and then paying taxes on your own money again to get this back. And then, you know, some authorities are not pretty happy about those kind of scenarios. So you shouldn't buy your own licenses. But what do you do instead? You can create that free license plan, put in your own tenant ID and assign that. But you can just create a group. And I think the group one, if I, 1 second. So the group one is the one which is basically used for security groups. So let's actually copy that one over. I won't create a security group now and test this with you. You can just trust me on this one, but I can show you how to create those security groups, I think. So let's go back into here. Can I go into Partner Center, into the Admin Center without... This is... Oh yeah, I can do it here. This should work. So if you go into Admin Center, and if you go to Groups, Security Groups, and then you can add a new security group. Test for Entitlements. Next. I don't think we need those, and I don't think we need any of those. You just need to create the group, close it. And then if you click on the group, you can copy that ID. That's the one we need to put it in here. And that way you've created a security group, and if you now put, if you add members to that group, they will get access to whatever permissions you define in here again. If you do the full thing, users assigned to that security group will have access to whatever objects you define here. Basically getting around buying any kind of license through AppSource. And the interesting thing also is that this is much quicker. I'm not sure if it's instant, but it's much quicker because for some reason, I don't know why, if you buy licenses for AppSource extensions on AppSource, you need to update, and it really takes up to 72 hours to reflect those license changes in Business Central for those AppSource app changes. So that's really not ideal. And the security group things are more or less instant, I believe. So you can create those. And I don't think, I mean, those are unique identifiers, so it doesn't really care about which tenant those are in. So you can also have the user, like a customer, define a security group if you would like to, then go do the same thing basically. And then one last thing, which is important. Let me close this and let me close this. And this is what I've learned recently. Service-to-service authentication, they also, like service-to-service application also needs some kind of access to your extension because, or some kind of license, and you cannot assign licenses to service-to-service applications, those Entra applications. So what you can do is you can create application scope entitlements with, and there you can just create any service-to-service authentication with that scope. And you probably recognize this if you've ever created a service-to-service authentication application in the in your Entra. Either that or that one or whatever scope, basically. You can say, well, those will get, again, full access because I don't want to manage licenses for those. I don't want to require licenses. Again, you cannot even assign licenses to applications. And then what you can also do is, if you have your own application, you can say this will be the client ID maybe. Let me just create one so it's realistic. Like this. And this is not application scope, but just application. And then you can say, well, my own application, which I might need, enter application with their client ID has specific permissions again, and you can separate those out from the general read write all application. So this would be the case if if the customer wants to use your custom APIs you've created with your extension, then you can go that route. Or if you have your own extension, own application, you can go that route. Yeah, and then just wrapping up the planning, the plan overview, the plans basically. You can define different pricings, of course, different levels, and then you can also like tie custom permissions to different plans you might define. If you have a basic version of your extension and more like additional features you want to bill separate for, you can probably also say, well, you need to have your base plan and then you need to have your extension plans, because I think you can buy more than one plan. But I would need to check up. I'm not exactly sure about this right now. Probably should be the case. And then you can assign those to users, and then you can do your permissions based around those. Now I had the case that I wanted to do pricing, like individual pricing, not through AppSource for one specific customer. And that's where I created that kind of plan where I said, well, this is for free, but it's private. And I put in the customer's tenant ID, save the draft, and then only users on that tenant ID logged in through Microsoft account while looking at this in AppSource. If you put in the tenant ID, whatever tenant ID from the customer, and add the customer's description here for overview purposes, save this, create your entitlement accordingly in your app, publish everything, then only that customer or the customers defined in that list here can actually view and buy that plan. So that way you can say, well, you need to have the license, just buy this free plan, and then we'll care about the pricing and the billing and everything manually outside of AppSource. And that way you can do those kind of scenarios as well. Now, let me see if there is anything I'm missing. By the way, if there are any questions, I try to look at all the various platforms and chats and questions there might be. So if you have any questions, anything I missed, feel free to ask. Also, of course, in the comments after the recording, after the live stream, if the recording is online, I'll also try to answer those. Oh yeah, as I said in the beginning, you might want to create different permission sets for the use with entitlements than the ones that are assigned to users, because as you saw, for entitlement permission sets, it's important to also define execute permissions on the various objects, because otherwise those ones won't be licensed. And since this can quite be like maybe not the best user experience to use those, or you might don't want users to use those permission sets as the permission sets they assign, you can set them to assignable false. That way they're just background permission sets for you to manage the entitlements, and not for users to really assign them to manage permissions on their users. So they would want to have the right read, write, and everything, the permission sets as they're usually. And yeah, for entitlements, you might want to have a different structuring. And then the thing I missed, or I didn't explain so far, is you can do more than just based on permissions on object level. You can also do code. I hope this is big enough. You can check using permissions. So the usual thing, write permissions, read permissions, but that might not be what you want. I usually find myself using that approach. to just say, well, if the user is entitled with that plan. Because sometimes you might want to do, or let's say your code units might not be structured in a way that would be optimal for licensing, that you can just say, well, if the user can execute a certain code unit, over there, a certain code unit, then they can, or if they have a certain license, they can access a certain code unit, but maybe you need to branch off within a function or within a procedure, or just say like at the beginning of a few functions within, like some functions in the code unit belong to that license, others to another license. Then you can just do that approach. And you can also do different extension entitlements, apparently. So let's just have a look at this function. Let me grab some code. This is perfect. So we have so the ID of the entitlement and optionally the app ID of where the entitlement belongs to. And yeah, the stupid thing is that we have, again, a full text thing, but you could, well, this is unlicensed, so maybe this one. So that's how you would check in code whether a user is entitled or not. Now let me understand this. Not sure what actually is unlicensed will return. Determines if the current user is assigned the unlicensed entitlement type for the application. Okay, so this is per application. That's important. So I was wondering if is unlicensed means the user doesn't have any license assigned, which would be not ideal, because then your extension breaks if another extension has if the user has a license assigned from another extension, which is stupid or would be stupid. So this is if the user doesn't have any license from your extension or the extension you're referencing here, which would, is the expected outcome. But so is entitled gives true or false for this entitlement. If they don't have that, or maybe just other entitlements, it would still return false. Doesn't mean that there is no license assigned to the user. Okay, so the combination from the example does make sense. So first check whether or not licensed at all, and then licensed with that specific entitlement. Depends on the use case, of course, but that's how you would check in code whether or not an entitlement is assigned to the user. Maybe one last thing. I did check. Let's remove this again. Let's go back to here. Remove the unlicensed one. So now let's see again if it breaks. And then I want to show you one last thing. Okay, so this already gives me again the execute permission error. I can't even use the app because I don't have any license assigned. Now if I publish this, I have a Nerdpacker container here. If I publish this to Docker, it will work. At least it worked when I tested this before the stream. Let's see. No, wait, this is not the right page. So I can open the alerts without any issue. Meaning, if you want to test entitlements correctly, use a sandbox. Otherwise, you won't see any effect of defining entitlement objects. So yeah, that's really important. There was a question how to sign the app package file. Well, that's a little bit off topic for this stream. You basically need to either buy a certificate from a authority and use that to sign your app package file, or using ALGO. I think you can also. I would need to check how that's named, how the name is exactly, but there is some service on Azure where you can pay monthly and then just have signing basically included in that monthly fee. But I strongly recommend, if you're not doing so already, to use ALGO, and I think there is plenty of documentation on how to set that up. Otherwise, I think you will find help there. And maybe I will do another stream about licensing at some point. Okay. Let me think if there is anything else about the entitlement thing, the licensing thing. Well, I think it's pretty hard to get started with this because there is a few different things involved, and you need to do basically a live offering to really test those kind of things. But in the end, if you know what you're doing, if you've done it once or seen my explanation here, hopefully, then it should make more sense. So I ended up in my project with a few entitlements. I did split them out. I just have them in one file now for the stream. But like basically all plans are covered with entitlements in the extension. Then I have the delegated entitlements. I have a group entitlement to cover the security group for internal use cases, for testing on sandboxes and stuff. So all the users have the security group assigned, and I have the API read write all to allow service-to-service authentication without requiring a license. I don't have a need for this one, but I would obviously create it if the extension would rely on a service-to-service authentication. I would cover this one as well, but again, in my use case, I didn't have that requirement. So that's how I did it. And well, if I missed anything, or if you have any other use cases that you would like an explanation on, or would like me to try, just let me know. I think the big takeaway was for me also, which I didn't know, that you also need to have execute permissions in your permission sets defined, while for regular permission sets, table data is probably enough. So yeah, just be aware of that. All right, I think that already concludes today's stream. It was a little bit shorter, but yeah, need to get started somehow. And let me know if there are also in the comments if there are any other topics you would like me to cover. I've noted the signing part. Let's have a nice Monday, a good week to everyone, and let's see you on the next stream. Thank you.